I don't know why, but it's giving me Bridge to Terabithia vibes.
Um, the Florida Project, exactly like that, except not really in any way. All right, so you want to introduce our whole
Yeah.
journey into watching this movie?
Well, welcome to the Space Turtle bonus episode. We're here reviewing Petite, Maman, the new film from the director of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which we both love. So we were very excited to see her work coming into this one. And we got to see this movie in a special theater in Miami, which is very cool.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it was on Street Calle Ocho in Little Havana, and it was like this local indie theater that we ran into. We didn't even know it was there when we were visiting.
Yeah.
And it was just very beautiful, and I love going to theaters in different places and seeing like how the film industry affects like different areas. And this one definitely didn't disappoint. If you have a chance, if you're in Miami, which I don't know how many people watching are from Miami, like all 10 of you watching, maybe one
Maybe
of you.
one, yeah.
But yeah, it was a great experience, I think.
It was awesome. I mean, it only shows like 3 or 4 movies at a time for a couple days, and it has like 2 theaters. Such a vibe when we're going into it. It had awesome trailers. It's actually like trailers that I'm like interested in. I mean, we do go to AMC a lot, and they do sometimes show trailers of movies that we want to watch. Just generally like tune out, you know. And
No Nicole Kidman ad.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No
dude.
AMC. No Dolby Theater, like split screen, projector still on. I mean, it was an experience, and I loved it. And if my balls weren't really wet still, I think I would.
All right, well, people are gonna take that out of context, bro. we were at the beach before this movie.
I forget sometimes
if my balls were really wet.
I absolutely forget sometimes that like people aren't with us like and stuff like that,
Oh my god. Well, what did you think of the movie?
Okay, so I thought it was exquisitely directed and perfectly acted is what I'll say at first. I think that the story had a lot of maturity to it that I think children really deserve, although in this film they are really mature children. They have an emotional intelligence that I'm not even sure I have at this point in my life, which is insane. But I really liked the way that they portrayed children in the ups and downs, in like the joyous and the non-joy, or not even like depressing, but like the relatability, empathy aspect, and then the fun play aspect. And we'll dive in a lot about my specific thoughts on the directing and how I really like that. That was my favorite part. And so, yeah, positive movie, great follow-up to Portrait of a Lady on Fire. We were talking about how it definitely is maybe more of a personal film, something that you probably wouldn't be able to get made if it's your first film, but following Portrait of a Lady, you got some money, you got some support on you, you can do something like this. So I'm glad that she was able to make it.
Yeah, I would say I definitely liked this movie. I definitely appreciated it. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts about it, though, because there's some things that, not that I don't like, but I'm not fully on board with yet at this moment.
I get that.
Certain things like the kids were not kids. They were basically just vessels for the adults to talk about their experience as kids.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's a mood, you know? I definitely don't know how I feel about that. But there are certainly very strong things going on. There's good acting and very personal directing, and I like how personal the story is, and I like the ambition that went on in the project, and I had a really good time with this one.
Yeah, I think I'll emulate those thoughts. I felt like the writing maybe was the most difficult aspect to get fully on board with, in my opinion. But there's a lot of ways that with that type of writing and story that they're telling that it could have gone a lot worse. And I think that Celine Sciamma's expertise under the camera or behind the camera, under the camera, behind the camera, and her like knowledge of when to cut, like how it affects mood and everything like that is masterful. And I think that it is definitely showing that Portrait of a Lady on Fire was not a singular thing. And I think that she's, in my opinion, forging herself to be a really competent director. The plot itself, is a little bit out there, but honestly, without her expertise behind the camera and directing, I could easily have disliked this film. And I didn't, and I think that is a lot on her directing. That's why it's my favorite part.
Yeah, and also one good thing about it is it's an hour and 10 minutes long.
Yeah,
which
very
just
short.
Goes to prove my point that I'm fighting for, that cinema should not just break the 2-hour barrier, dude. Make it 4 hours or make it 1 hour. I don't give a fuck. Just make it.
Not 8 hours.
Yeah, not 8 hours. Please, not 8 hours. But
we've learned our lesson.
Yeah, do whatever the film requires, and this one required a much tighter, shorter runtime, and I'm glad that they went with that, because I don't know, man. I feel like I'd get a little nervous if I'm a director and I'm putting out a movie that's an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm like, that's not a lot of movie, man. Like,
yeah.
I gotta shoot some more shit just to make it longer. I'm sure it was longer, and then she cut it down to that point. So kudos for that. Kudos to the directing. Like you said, the writing, it's kind of tough with this one. I think not a lot happened, which is not always a bad thing at all. But I felt like sometimes the characters were very bleak and rigid. Like they didn't have a lot of. They had depth, but just when you don't have any expression, like it can be hard to follow. And the writing, I don't think, helped that. As like I was saying before, the kids don't feel like kids at all, like at all, and it just feels like. Sometimes films, like, they don't reach you on that literal level. Like, they're not trying to be a film. They're just trying to convey ideas. And I think this suffers a little bit from that.
Yeah, I agree.
But, certain directing things that she does with, like, I don't know, like, especially with the mother-daughter relationship and the way that she handles that relationship, I love all of that. And I think that's the strength of the film here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think maybe a quick little summary of things that happen in this movie. There's not a lot, but so it does open up with her coming or moving out of, or helping her. Not even helping, really. Her parents are moving her grandma's stuff out of the retirement home or care center or whatever, and she's saying goodbye to every one of the other patrons there, I guess. And then they go to the grandma's house, and the mom has to revisit a lot of her childhood and a lot of her childhood memorabilia and feelings and everything like that. And as she's doing that, she gets really sad, really depressed, and they're trying to move everything out. The mom disappears for a little while, and the daughter goes out to play and meets the mom as a child.
Yeah.
And so they have very, like you were saying, very idea-driven conversations that are philosophical in a way that is almost writing to screen. It's like, how you kind of try and convey philosophy and ideas through like actions or like events and things like that. This one's more like idea. Person says it in the film. They'll say that idea like straight, and having it be children is a little jarring. I think maybe the maybe one redeeming or perhaps I guess pass that I might give a little bit of it too is it deals a lot with like depression, and the mom has depression. She's always been kind of sad, you know. So communication is pretty difficult with the daughter, and so maybe that's a little bit about how the daughter grows up to be able to talk, like really talking about ideas, not really communicating much bombastically or like funnily and stuff like that, and even less so with her mom nowadays. And so she has to talk about these ideas to her mom as a child, like before she starts to like shut down and like build walls and that kind of stuff. Even though that's not a full, like, it's okay now, but like I think maybe that is a little bit about how or why the kids have such a deep and constant conversation about such philosophical and emotional things.
Yeah, and there's two things I think of when I think of that, which is like two reasons why I'm still a little conflicted on whether I truly don't like it or not. And the first one is like this director, I forget her name. What's
Celine Sciamma?
Celine Sciamma?
Yeah.
I mean, I got to learn it because she's she's like that, She's
Yeah.
she's already a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But she could just be much smarter than we are, and she was just that smart as a kid. Like,
or maybe there's some like, we have the Florida Project where we're like, hey, yeah, that's us, bro. We're just like, woo.
Yeah.
And then there's like French kids who are
Yeah.
like, depression. I've always been sad.
I've been depressed since I was 6 years old. Like, oh fuck, bro. Smart enough to have depression.
Put on this act, like they do this little play thing. They're so good in it. Like, wow, that's what you do in your free time, man. I was freaking, I don't know, shitting on the ground, burning my house down. I don't know.
Yeah. But then, so the second reason I don't fully dislike the perspective of having the kids like talk as adults, basically, is like it reminds me of the way I think of myself as a kid, and like the way I internalize my thoughts as a kid now as an adult.
Yeah.
And it's very strongly like what that is what she's putting on the screen here. And while I think it's more unique, and I might have personally decided to make the kids a little dumber, I appreciate like that it was such a strong vision, and it was like she kept with that vision,
Yeah.
like this is a director that has a vision, like a very strong vision, and she keeps with it. And I think that's something to be I can't even think of a word. I'm
Admirable?
dumber than a kid. Like it's like quite an accolade. It's like something that should be rewarded.
Yeah. And I think that there are so many choices in this film that are made with such confidence that you can't help but at least admire it, even though there might be a little bit of, maybe that doesn't really work. But I think for me, because she's so confident in the choices that she's made, I kind of glean a little bit of that confidence. And for me, a lot of the film works, even though maybe it's not like the best way that you could have done a film, or like the best way you could have shown these thoughts, or I still think that they're not like negative for me. There's a couple little things about her directing that I really liked. I like that there was absolutely like zero music in the film, except for one moment. And I think that heightened that moment to such a degree. And then the second thing that also added to that is that she does these cuts at like the most like top of like emotional. So it keeps this tone so consistent, because anytime they have a little bit of fun, it like cuts out. Every time it gets a little bit depressive, it cuts out. Like everything, and anytime they're kind of like diving into anything deeply, like, not to say that it like keeps them from diving into things deeply. It like has the idea, but then it doesn't give you much time to think about the idea that was presented. It cuts into the next scene, and most of the time it cuts with her sitting in the same spot, like, and then the next day, and she's having cereal, so like she'll be like sitting with Marianne, which is her mom as a kid, in that seat, and then like they'll have a conversation, and then it'll cut, and then she's in her grandma's house like in the present, and like her dad like puts down like a bowl of cereal or something like that, you
Yeah.
know. And that is so juxtaposed with the scene where the music comes in and they actually have fun and they go to the pyramid, and everything like that, and the contrast of like blue and red, which I haven't really had that much time to think about yet, but it elevated that scene to an insane level to me. And whether or not the movie suffers from that type of like consistent tone in order to have this climax that's really high, again, is up to whether you think that these choices that she boldly made are like the right choices or not. But I think just the boldness and the confidence that she made them with had me on board.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, and another thing you were saying, like with that scene and like talking with the dad and whatnot, I think the strongest things for this film is actually not the the kids talking together, but it's like the main girl talking with her mother and talking to her father is when I had my eyes glued to the scene the most. Like her relationships with both of them, it felt very real and emotional, and it gave you a lot, especially the mother. I think she's the best actress or actor or whatever in this film, and
I thought she was great
I
too.
wish she was in it more, to be honest. She's gone for a while, and I'm like, no, come back. You're like, I don't know. She's just, for the film, it makes sense, and like story wise, right? It's like, well, now I feel like the daughter, like, now I want mommy back.
Yeah.
But you
Clip
know,
that. Someone clip that.
I mean, but really though, she brings something to the movie that I felt like was missing for a while, just because she was so impactful while she was there.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of minute expressions in her face that I really identified with, and I felt like it reinforced that idea that I was talking about earlier, in the sense that there's a want to communicate, or like there's a lot of thoughts in her head that she's not able to kind of bring out, and like her running away, or even wording it as running away, is like, you know, contentious and stuff like that. But maybe there's some kind of like interpretation where her running away is not actually her leaving, maybe, and she just like, it's actually the mom that like the daughter's talking to, but she just lets her child out. I don't know, maybe, you know, there's a lot of things in this movie that are up for debate, that I would honestly think that a second viewing would have been nice, even though I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty tired that day, so it was a little bit difficult to get through, but I did have an expectation that it would center a lot more on the grandma, and so that's what I was kind of looking for. And it being like all about the mom and the daughter was a great decision, but I also was finding myself kind of being like, ooh, when they see the grandma in the past, I'm like, is she gonna like get some types of scene with her, maybe a conversation or anything? But like, she literally never gets to talk to the grandma other than like hello and like singing happy birthday and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, I think as an hour and 10 minute, or hour and like 10-ish minute film, I think it's super concise in the way that it dives into the mother-daughter relationship. And I think if it had gone on any longer, it would have been pretty slow, I guess.
Yeah, it probably would have gone a little stale. It's like a very poignant, like precise movie. It's very interested in the mother-daughter relationship. And, you know, going back to what you're saying, I mean, to me, that's totally what it was, with like the mother running away, becoming her inner child, like metaphorically, like in the way she's like losing her grandma, and then I mean, I don't know, because I haven't lost my parents, thankfully, you know. But, you know, I'm sure you would go back in time and just think about, like, what is your relationship with your parents as a child, and like, how were you as a child? And it had me thinking about that with my parents as I was watching the movie, which is a beautiful thing, I think, when films like do that kind of thing where they have you think about your own life, and then you get a deeper meaning from the film.
Yeah.
I love it when that happens. That's like always. That's what film's about, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it does a lot of those things very well. And I think it's very strong in that way. So I can't like while I'm saying like the writing could have been better in one aspect, in other aspects like it actually is brilliant in many other ways. So uh, it's just there's so many things here that I like about the mother daughter relationship in the mother and daughter and the mother and the grandma, that's where the strength of the movie lies, and that's everything here to me.
Yeah. I think maybe an idea that I've been toying while we're talking is maybe there's a personal aspect of this film that, because we're not Celine Sciamma, like perhaps this isn't a personal film. Maybe she just like wanted to make this film, but
It'd be crazy.
yeah, it would be crazy.
It'd be crazy if it wasn't. But yeah,
but
she's good though. Like I mean, she could do it.
If she, yeah. And I think that maybe these kinds of the mindset that that she's portraying in this movie is not necessarily completely able to be felt by every person or the audience. And I think that maybe if I listen to her talk about this movie and her talk about personal stuff, maybe it would make me understand a little bit more about the film. So I feel like another theory is that like this is an expression of like her wanting to speak to her mother in the way, you know, so that's why the children are like adults kind of like speaking, you know. There's a lot of theories, you know, that can go along that would benefit this movie, and I think that what we were talking about kind of is in essence the whole movie, is that like these choices are made with such a thematic core that is like real and tangible, but like maybe like the rest of it is a little bit harder for an audience member to fully understand if we didn't know about like the personal, or because we don't know about like the personal life of Celine Sciamma and why she made this film, what kind of parallels that it did with her life maybe, and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, and just one more thing, like about the little girls acting like adults, which like I know I keep going back to this, but there's certain scenes where like they're having fun, and I'm like, that's not the way kids have fun, you know? Like they were like making pancakes or something, whatever, and I was like,
that's sophisticated, bro. You're cooking.
Sure, cooking, but like
Yeah.
I don't know, just the way they were playing, I was like, that's like the most generic like. Oh, what would kids do? Oh, you brush the thing on, like
you gotta put mustaches on each other.
yeah, it was like that is like so out of touch with childhood to me. I don't know, like I just the way that it felt, it just didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just a different childhood experience, but to me it just felt like not a childhood experience. Like this is definitively not a child.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of makes me want to describe my comparison with the Florida Project of this film, because I feel like it really is in essence kind of tackling the things that Florida Project tackles in the mother-daughter relationship, although there are other themes that both films kind of like tackle, you know, in and of themselves. But it does like the opposite, you know? The kids are super goofy, super like dumb and spitting on windshields and stuff like that in the Florida Project. And these guys are like doing plays and like playing multiple characters in those plays and building huts. Like I don't even know how to build a hut now. Like
Yeah.
And yet there's still this relationship between the mom who leaves in the end of the Florida Project, whereas this mom leaves before the end and she only comes back at the end, you know. And I think that this comparison is really interesting because it mirrors these types of moments of connection with children, you know. In the Florida Project, there is one of my favorite scenes is when the mom takes the daughter to go shopping, and they kind of like grab a bunch of things at the dollar store, and then they go to the hotels and they eat free breakfast, and they tell like the random room number, and
I forgot about that. I was like, I watched that in the movie, and I was like, I should do that sometime, and then I forgot. But now I am.
we should have done that in Miami.
We should have done that in Miami. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, and in that sense, it's like these connections that you have with your child, and then you eventually have to leave. But even in a family that's more together and more like, what's it called? Just together, I guess. Like
they're more financially
yeah,
stable.
yeah. Like there's not that many issues. There are still moments where there are disconnects with the parents and the child, and this longing to connect as a child to the parent and the parent to the child kind of is an exploration that is really interesting in both films, and I kind of like that dichotomy, and it kind of made me think of the other films. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just more of like it's like a different perspective from this movie, and like that's cool, That's
Yeah,
all
totally.
I
mean,
really had to say.
it reminds me, and like I don't have too much more to say about the movie, but it reminds me of sometimes I think about like if I have kids, like how I'm gonna be as a parent, and I'm like I want to be emotionally there for them and resonant and everything. And this movie is like, yeah, you can be emotionally there for your kids, but also your life could still be like sad and fucked up. And I was like, damn, that kind of ruins my dream a little bit.
You gotta
Dream
just try your
shattered, dude.
best, right?
Like,
that's the thing.
Fuck, man, like my kid's gonna be depressed like I am or something. Yeah, I don't have much more to add other than
Well,
that,
I
though.
think that's why I love the last scene, because at the very end, people are human, we're human, you can't be present every day of your life, or like even present for someone else for every day of their life, and so she comes back and she says, I'm sorry I was gone. And even though we have those interpretations that maybe she wasn't gone, maybe she's the kid, blah blah
Yeah.
blah, but you just apologize. And I don't know, I honestly wanted I forgot the ending line, and I feel like there was something significant about it, but
Yeah, I don't remember.
I almost wanted her to say, this is an aside, this isn't part of the
Mhm.
ending thoughts, but her to say, one of the cool conversations she has is with her mom is, what did you want to say as your goodbye to your grandma? And then when it was like the last day where the mom was going to surgery and she says bye to the grandma, like as well, I kind of wish that she had said that, I know
Yeah.
it's not really focused on the grandma and the daughter of the girl, but I kind of wanted that in there. But anyways,
Yeah, that would have been cute. Actually. That would have been
gotta,
cute.
at least, but at the very end, you reconcile, and you try and do your best and understand each other. And I think my summarization of all my thoughts is just, there are a lot of bold choices in this movie, which I respect, and there's a thematic core that is heavily explored and concrete and intricate. The things around it is kind of up for debate whether you like it or not. This movie's not for everyone, and I say that after shooting Songs from the Second Floor. So
Yeah.
but this movie is definitely not for everyone, but respectable. Glad she was able to make it. Love the directing, even if the story and the dialogue were harder to get on board with, but I thought most of it was positive. Maybe just a little, not like great, just like good,
Yeah, I mean, for my closing thoughts, it's like it's a very precise story, and what they do with that precise story is very great, and everything like surrounding it I didn't love quite as much, which is kind of similar to what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we agree on that. It's a very personal movie, and the direction is very evident in that. Very good shot selection, stuff like that. I like the runtime, like I said before. Glad they're starting to make keep pushing that. Keep pushing that. I mean, just keep making movies that are like weird runtimes. I love that.
It's like an hour. I mean, what was I don't know why I said that. I mean, it's a pretty film too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like as in the sets, like, or like in the what's it called, in the environment of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but I still felt her hand was like handling the setting in the way that she was handling things in Portrait of a Lady on Fire. She didn't have the ocean, she didn't have the mountains and things to look at, but it was still precise and beautiful. And that's another positive that I want to say right before we end things.
Totally. I mean, so just closing. I didn't love it as much as Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but
That's
still
hard sell, yeah.
it's a high bar to reach, and I appreciate what she did with this film and the ambition that was behind it.
Yeah. And I think what's the best thing about directors is if you just stick to your guns and you have a strong thematic core, the rest is confetti, to quote.
To quote
the icing
who?
on the cake. Well, it's to quote The Haunting of Hill House, the ending.
All right.
The rest is confetti.
What do you give it?
I'm gonna give it a red turtle and a squirt.
No way. That's
Really?
exactly what I was gonna give.
Nice.
A red turtle and a squirt.
Respectable, and
Solid film.
yeah, I don't know how many of you guys have seen this movie. I mean, we had to luckily stumble upon it, even though we wanted to watch it. I mean, we knew that Celine Sciamma is coming out with another film. We were just like, where the heck can we watch this movie? Like, and so
Yeah, it was nowhere to be found in
Yeah.
Dallas. Like, we could not find it.
yeah, and so we're glad we stumbled upon it. We hope maybe even if you haven't watched this movie, you can watch this review because we're cool and we talk about cool things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how many of you guys have actually seen the movie, but you know.
Well, and if you have, like, there's
Yeah,
probably
let
not
us
a lot
know.
of reviews out there, so this could
Yeah.
be it for you guys. You have no other
You're
choice.
forced to watch
Like,
this review.
So, if you liked it, if you just were forced to be here and you watched all the way to this part, you might as well like and subscribe,
Yes,
because
leave us a comment.
I mean,
Tell us what you think
like,
of the movie.
ring the bell, even. Like,
Whoa.
if you're so
that's
daring.
some big steps,
I
man.
shit. So I think that's
Yeah, that's all we have to say. All right, bye.